Well, first of all, thank you, Joe. This is a privilege to be speaking up here. And also, it is a complete, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that I'm speaking for youth, like I'm speaking about God to youth or to anyone really. Because 5 years ago, I didn't know how much of a relationship that I could have with God. Like, I grew up believing in God because I was told to believe in God, and that was great for me to grow up in, but I did not know that this was a relationship that I was going to be walking through life, that I was going to be walking through life with the Lord, and that He was going to guide me just to certain things in my life. So I'm truly grateful for that. And I wish I could say that when Joe asked me to do this, that those were the first two things I thought about, just complete gratitude. But I was like, oh, okay, I have to be in front of how many people? And how long does this have to be? And do I even have a message? I've been writing in my journal for years, like messages upon messages, and all of a sudden I'm like, where'd the wisdom go? I have no more wisdom, it's gone. So, and it's not because I didn't have the desire and the excitement to be here with you guys and to be speaking about God. It wasn't that I wasn't truly grateful. It's just that fear has a way of stepping in front sometimes. Fear has a way of saying, you know what, you don't have control over this situation, so I'm going to just step in and I'm going to put a big fat label on it. It's going to be fear, and that's where you're going to stay. Well, it's not going to stay there. Now, a little story time before I get started into the main message is when I was in high school, I was very afraid of speaking in public, just in a school, in a classroom of like 15, 20 people. And I would escape presentations at all costs. Like I would call out sick, I would not show up, I wouldn't prepare. I would just and I don't even remember doing a lot of them. So either I just blocked it out because it was that terrifying, or I just really got away with it somehow. By the way, I am not condoning that because it is good for you to walk through these things. One, because we don't want to live in fear, and two, that's equipping you for a lot more in your life than what it seems at the moment. But I would just escape it at all costs, and I remember getting to the end of high school, and my friends were going to college. They're going to 4-year university, and I honestly didn't really know what I wanted to do at the time, and so that was part of my decision making. But a huge part of me deciding that I didn't want to go to a 4-year college was I heard there were presentations there, and there were more people, and oh my gosh, you're spending money to do it, so wow, I really can't screw up this time. And so I was like, you know what, I don't even really know what I want to do anyway. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go another route. Going another route and not going to a 4-year college, that wasn't the problem, because there's lots of routes that we can go, directions we can go in after high school. The problem was that fear was starting to rule my decision making. And it was starting to rule things that maybe God was trying to lead me to. Maybe He wanted me to go to a 4-year college. You never know. I mean, everything worked out, and I'm still speaking, so I'm even speaking at schools now. But so you can't really escape God's plan sometimes. So that's just one thing. So yeah, that happened. And then fast forward 6 years later, so I'm 24 at this point, and I still have gotten away with no presentations. I'm like, ooh, I am comfortable. I don't have to present in front of people. I don't have to feel uncomfortable at any point, and I'm just going to stay right where I'm at. And I actually carried that into a lot of areas of my life. Like, I just want to be comfortable. And I go into this workout class at 24 Hour Fitness, and I'm in a workout class, and I see this instructor at the front, and she's doing the weights, and she is pumping people up with music, and she is moving and laughing with 20 to 30 people in the classroom. And I remember looking at her, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, I want to do that. That looks fun. And my heart just pulled towards it. Like, have you guys ever felt like your heart just pulls towards something when you watch it? Maybe it's like a TikTok video, or maybe it's like something on Instagram, or a movie, or something. Like, maybe it's like, for me, dancing. When I watch dancing, like, my heart just like grows bigger, it feels like. And so I watched that, and I was like, man, I want to do that. And it was about 6 to 8 months, maybe even a year, where I didn't have the courage to do it. And it started to get to a point where I was daydreaming about doing it, and I was dreaming about doing it, and I would literally wake up to these dreams, and I'd wake up to the reality that I was too scared to do it. And it felt like a prison of fear. And it felt like I just felt so limited, and I wanted to escape that. So finally, my friend said something to me. She said something she'd said to me 20 times before. Kyndra, you're never going to be ready. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm never going to be ready. And for some reason, that time it clicked. So I tried out, and I passed, and the instructor who was training me was like, so you did really great. Like, you passed it. Awesome. You're an instructor now. I was like, great. He said, have you done this before? I'm like, no. He said, you look like a natural up there. And I'm like, oh, cool. Well, because I blacked out the whole time, so I'm glad someone saw. And, my point with saying that is that you're going to find that a lot of people in your life are going to start saying things that they're seeing in you. Like your mentors, leaders, these people in your life, your parents, they're going to start noticing these things in you that God most likely is calling you to in your life. You're so kind, you're so loving, you're so forgiving, you're so full of mercy, you're so good with tech, you're so good with this talent or that talent. And you're going to notice that these people in your life are surrounding you with that. So is fear a good or bad thing? Show me your thumbs. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Is fear a good thing or a bad thing? Okay, so we have some thumbs up, we have some thumbs down, we have thumbs in the middle. So yeah, fear just kind of is what it is. It's a God-given emotion, and it's a reaction to a perceived threat. It might be a threat to who we are, our safety, our control, our plan, but it's a perceived threat. Is listening to fear a good or a bad thing? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Okay, we got a lot more thumbs down on this one, some sideways. Okay, well, fear can sometimes be a good thing to listen to. Like, what if you're on a hike and you see a rattlesnake? Do you want to feel the fear and listen to that fear and figure something out? Okay, I was going to be concerned if someone's like, no, like, be careful. Or if you see a bear, like, you want to feel the fear and be able to react to it, right? Yeah. Well, what about this one? This is a little twist. So what about the fear of maybe you want to do something that you know you shouldn't because you're going to get caught by your parents? Now, is that a fear that you should listen to? No, just go to it. I beg to differ. I'd be like, okay, that's a check in your spirit. That's kind of like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't do that, because your parents are there to protect you, and really they want you to be safe, and they're trying to put these guardrails up for you in your life. What about if you are wanting to gossip about a friend and you're afraid that your friend might find out? Is that a fear that we should listen to? Yeah, I mean, I would say personally, yeah, these are things that you'll have to think about, but I would say, yeah, like if I can't say something in the same room with a friend, then yeah, maybe I shouldn't be saying it with someone else. I love what Joe said. At one point, he said, if you're not a part of the problem or the solution, then maybe we shouldn't be talking about it at all. But fear can be, yes, a good or fear is what it is, but listening to fear can be a good or a bad thing. When is it not good to listen to fear? In my opinion, it's not good to listen to fear when you are wanting to do something like in your life. The desire for something is growing, like it was for me to be like a body pump instructor. And you're not going towards it. You're not facing that fear in order to do it. It could also be the fear of, maybe you want to be obedient to God, but that's not really what your friends are doing. That's something that you'll want to listen to. Like, who are you following? Like, what God's saying or what the world's saying? So that's something that I personally am always trying to keep myself in check with. So when it comes to these things, we want to do it afraid. when it comes to those last couple things, when those desires are growing in your heart, when you want to be obedient to the Lord and follow his desires for us, that's when you want to do it afraid. So how do we do it afraid? Well, first we need to know what God says about us, right? So God says in 2 Timothy 1:7, "For God does not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." So maybe you look at that and you're like, okay, well, it says don't feel fear, but I still feel fear, so that didn't do anything for me. That's how I used to look at this. But what he's saying is that it's very small. I don't know if you can see it, but but what he's saying is that we can feel the fear, but his spirit will give us the power and the love and a sound mind to do exactly what he wants us to do that's in his will. So the spirit will lead us. We can do it afraid. He says he's going to give us the power. God says, I'm going to give you the power. 2 Corinthians 12:9. Each time he said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me. What this means to me is that you don't have to act like you're not afraid. You don't have to act like you're not insecure or you're angry or whatnot. You can feel what you're feeling, and you can still step forward in faith, knowing that all things are going to work out the way God wants it to work out in your life. God gave us the power of love. So this brought me to 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. When I look at this one, I'm challenged in my own life to look at these situations I feel fear in and try to turn that fear into love. So an example for me would be in that class when I would still teach body prep nervous for the first year. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about me. Being nervous about speaking is thinking about me. How can I turn that into love? How can I send that love out? How can I think about that person who hasn't been to the gym in that long, in like years, and they're here for the first time? In fact, I don't even know his name. I'm going to go talk to them. Or Cindy over here, who is a stay-at-home mom, full-time mom, working a full-time job. And, how can I be there for her? And you can take this into your own life when you're with your friends too. You instead of thinking, and there's no shame in thinking about ourselves, by the way, we're human, but it helps to remove ourselves from ourselves and try to think about the person in front of us. Especially, I dealt with anxiety and depression a lot in my life. And, when I would go through those things, I personally found that when I was more in trying to serve or listen to people or be there for people, that actually it diminished. So that's just my personal story, and not saying that is for everybody, but that just came out, so wasn't even part of that. But but let's say you're in conflict with someone too, a friend. How can you turn that fear into love? How can you think about, well, how are they feeling right now? How are they hurt by it? These are things that I have recently gone through, and it's really hard to take ourselves out of our emotions when we're feeling angry or upset or hurt. But I have found that the hardest thing to do, but has broken me open the most in love, is when I'm able to actually say, what did I do to hurt you? Can you share first what I did, or what I need to do to be a better friend, or something else, brother, sister, daughter. And God gave us the power of a sound mind. So when I think of a sound mind, sound mind is peace and not thinking about the past or the future, just completely at rest. And then I think about, okay, well, when do I feel anxious and worried? And so I think about the times that I feel anxious and worried is really when I want to make sure that I know my plans are going to be done. I want to know I have control. I want to know that I'm going to be safe. I want to know that my character isn't going to be challenged, things like this. And what God says is, you know what? You don't need to know, because I know. And you can just keep moving forward and move forward in faith. So in Jeremiah 29:11, he says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." So what he's saying right here is, all we have to do is follow his desires for our lives, following his words to the best of our ability. And we're going to make mistakes upon mistakes upon mistakes, and there is so much grace for that. But he says, just try to follow me with the best of your ability. Do it until you know better. Once you know better, try to do better. And he says, and then also try to follow the desires of your heart. Like, what pulls at your heart? What interests do you have? What talents have I given you? What gifts have I given you? And if we don't know that, then can we take the time to actually figure that out too? Because he's really creating who you are as a person. We have to take time to invest in ourselves too. So then the rest of, Jeremiah 29:13 ends with, "You will seek me and you will find me when you seek me with all your heart." So again, just putting our focus on the desires of his heart by spending time in the Word, and then also investing in ourselves. And he says when we're obedient to him and we just follow his desires and the gifts and the talents and the interests, that he's going to open doors that are supposed to be opened. He's going to mend relationships that are supposed to be mended. He's going to create relationships in your life that are supposed to grow. And he's going to help you flourish in the things that you're supposed to flourish in for his plan and his glory. So because of Jesus dying on the cross for us and that he rose again, we are able to walk through these things afraid or feeling whatever we feel. And we can still move forward in faith, knowing that his plan is going to prevail. If you've asked Jesus into your heart, then you asked him into that relationship. You asked him to walk with you through all this. So he's there with you. He's there with us all through it. And if you haven't asked Jesus into your heart, you're going to have an opportunity to right now. So why don't we all stand up?